This content is brought to you in part by Real Marketing, the only marketing firm recommended exclusively by the Institute. Real Marketing utilizes over 25 years of expertise, and their products are built and customized for you to dominate any neighborhood, anywhere. Go to realmarketingforyou.com. That's Real Marketing, the number 4, you.com. Also, look for past A State of Mind episodes with CEO David Collins as our guest. So welcome, Julie. We're not the Wall Street Journal, but we love our little podcast.
Oh my gosh, you are so much better. You're so much better.
Right. Well,
you're a friend, and no, I'm delighted to be here, Diane, and I'm excited to talk about expanding your sphere. It's a critical part of real estate, and I'm excited to kind of dive into it a little further with you.
Well, good. You know, we call this really the foundation of building really your professional career. It's really on not just who you know, but what do you do with that? How do you activate that? And one of the things that you and I have been talking about for quite some time is this idea of thought leadership and positioning yourself, and really, like, you know, you've done that exceedingly well, and not just in the luxury real estate career, but really in this tech startup. Can you talk about, like, just foundationally, how did you connect those dots to begin with?
Well, I think it's, I mean, we were laughing just a little bit earlier about, thought leadership. You first have to have a thought and a position on things. And I think that that's kind of where, as my career evolved, one of the things that I noticed was the fact that my sphere of influence, as I became more intentional and as that grew, I needed to, on behalf of my clients and on behalf of, the listings and my own personal business, I needed to really be able to activate other professionals in other markets. And so as we were ideating and saying, how do you do that? And how do we use this wonderful luxury of technology to personalize, as you know, Diane, real estate is a very personal business. How do we use technology to enable more of these relationships, whether it's with our clients or whether it's with our peers? And as a result, Realm kind of emerged from those initial thoughts.
That's great. And I did laugh at that, and I did write that down, that first, in order to be a thought leader, you must have a thought. And we're laughing about it, though, in part because most people discount their own thoughts, right? They go, oh, nobody wants to know about that, or nobody wants to hear, but it's just not true.
It's so funny, Diane, because for the longest time, real estate was, as you mentioned, real estate was something that I kind of found my way to from a luxury hospitality background. But I used to think, gosh, I'm just good at making friends. That's my whole thing. And what ended up happening, is because I'm good at making friends, and then I'm good at connecting those people, there's actually so much intention and so much opportunity that's built in there. But like you said, I was discounting that because I was just like, oh, I was the social for my sorority. I'm good. I'm comfortable living in different places. And really that's a skill set that then you can hone. And ultimately that's been the foundation for my real estate business and for Realm.
Yeah. I mean, really, when you think about the most successful real estate professionals, regardless of what market they're working in, they're outstanding connectors, right? To kind of utilize that. I'm a huge fan of Malcolm Gladwell and his book Tipping Point, right? Really kind of understanding the interconnectivity of people. And so when you think about some very successful luxury real estate professionals have come from the luxury hospitality industry. And so when kind of back to this idea of thought leadership, right? And connecting people and technology. Listen, I talk to people every day that when I use the word technology, they think I mean email, right? And again, I'm chuckling at it, not because it's real. The struggle here is real, to get people to embrace something outside of just sending someone an email, right? Mm-hmm. So can you take a minute and describe, when you founded Realm Global, right? You had this this big idea. And what was the big idea?
Well, I think, there is so much insight as thought leaders, or I like to say, as community builders, because I think that that's another really great way to describe a real estate professional, especially as you kind of get into that elite level of the profession. One of the things that I found was that there are so many factors that are informing our clients and their buying and selling decisions, what they want, their preferences, and so much of that is publicly available data. Rather than having them force the client to re-educate each time they go into a different market, what we started to look at was, are there ways that we can find out this information in a non-creepy, non-invasive way? Are there ways that we can find out this information to just make it easier on the client? And ultimately, whether we're dealing with the client directly or whether we're making an introduction to one of our colleagues in a different market, the more information we have, the more we can be effective at kind of networking and community building, and ultimately making this integration into a new community much more seamless and much more satisfactory for the end user, for the client who we are charged with serving. And so I look at it a lot like, we are kind of the camp counselors of these communities, and it's so fun because we're the first entree to somebody's, the school that the kids are going to go to, or to the, the philanthropy that they're going to support, or to a new social sphere. And what we don't realize is, while we're making all of those introductions, we're building a sphere of influence, to your point, but then we're also providing an invaluable service that keeps that client coming back and making recommendations to us again, and helping us just continue to build our business.
Wow, lots to unpack there.
Yeah, I know that was
great
a mouthful.
thoughts. Really, well, with great thoughts, right? So, a couple things. We did a podcast a couple of episodes ago that I'd encourage the folks listening to this. We spent a whole lot of time digging into what you just talked about. It was the episode where I was interviewing Andrew Hong, who relocated from LA to Salt Lake City, and how the real estate professional that he eventually chose wound up being an enormous connector to this person who, he's in his mid-30s, he doesn't know anyone, and all of these things. I'm going to say this, he made it easier. And so you've touched on with made it easier. I've not heard that before, where you tied together this idea of the research that's available, it's publicly available information, but there's a cost to it. Okay. There's a cost to these profiles and portfolios of people that we want to work with. But I loved that you're really doing that so that person doesn't have to repeat him or herself in describing who they are. You already know. And I have these kind of hallmarks of what luxury is. And number one is no mistakes. There's zero forgiveness for, dropping a ball. The second one is, really all folks want is to make this process as easy as possible. So you're tying together this idea of realm and the research of preferences and who these folks are and matching, right?
Well, I think, it is, you think about it like, and it's funny because the same people that built Realm built Match.com. And so it's like, you do have a relationship with your community. You do have a relationship with your home. And so when you think about it in terms of your lifestyle profile, what you're looking for, as a home buyer, is to build that relationship again in a new environment. And so how you do that, and how, it goes back to all of those kind of nuancy things that don't necessarily come through in an ad in the newspaper or in a banner on a website. All of those things are important, but it's all about kind of how you combine all of the different facets of marketing into one kind of cohesive message that then gets fed back to the client in a way that they can digest it and understand it, and makes it easy and seamless. And because anytime when you're dealing with an acquisition or you're dealing with a sale, there's so many details that everybody is navigating. The more we can, as real estate professionals, make it easy, and as you said, Diane, make it kind of perfect and seamless. That's our job, and it keeps people coming back. And it is, I think when I was starting out in my career and I kind of had that pride in service, I was doing it because of my hospitality background. And now more than ever, I see it as it builds repeat business. It keeps people coming back. It makes people recommend me. So it ultimately builds that sphere of influence that we're talking about as well.
So the work that you've done on Realm aside, right? Because that's the culmination of a 20 plus year career, and always thinking and not discounting those thoughts. Don't discount those thoughts. But really back to the beginning of it all, of you're now switching industries and you're needing to go out and activate that sphere that you have. So as a thought leader, meaning you provide value when you walk in the room. That's the basic, like, to me, that's the table stakes of a thought leader. Like if it's at the community level, if it's at the, finance level, if it's, you are a skilled professional in something. So you do some work in your community, which you were new. You didn't grow up there.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. We moved here. And so, but again, it goes back to kind of some of that philosophy. And I give my husband a lot of credit because he was the one that kind of said, look, Julie, if we're going to build a business here where we expect this community to make us successful, we need to make sure we're making this community successful. And I think that is an incredible kind of keystone. It's become an incredible keystone to our real estate practice and to actually, really the industry, because now we're looking at it like it's not just our community here in Jackson Hole, but it's our community of peers. Like, we want to give back more than we get so that we continue to kind of grow that relationship and always add value and get invited to participate in things like this podcast and in things like the incredible community foundation that we have here in Jackson. We've just been given these incredible opportunities to be around really smart people and to expand kind of our knowledge base just based on some of the services and the philanthropy that exists here in Jackson. And those are things that enrich our lives. But then in turn, it also has created an incredible sphere of influence and helped us build a more successful business.
So I want to focus really hard here on the community foundation. Okay. Those things are near and dear to my heart. I think they're fabulous. And so a lot of people, again, that I talk to kind of discount what they can do, right? Because you start with giving, right? You give back. So you are on the community foundation board in Jackson Hole. Well, what is that? What do you do?
Well, so, the community foundation here, Jackson Hole, Wyoming is the most philanthropic community per capita in the nation. And so when you look at kind of the core DNA of this community is all about giving back. We've got about 250 nonprofits, and the community foundation acts essentially as that philanthropic bank for those nonprofits. And so what's happening when people move into the community is they're looking to domicile here. They're looking to kind of invest in new ways, connect with people that share their passions. It goes back to that same thing, when you know that somebody is an animal lover, or that somebody has a real passion for conservancy, then we can help make those introductions. And then they join, boards of those nonprofits. They give back in different ways. And so really as a board member, we're looking at just kind of the 30,000 foot view of the philanthropic landscape here in Jackson, but then we're also looking at ways that we can deploy our resources, ways that we can connect with family offices and charitable giving foundations. As more and more people relocate to this market, it's just a wonderful way, again, to get to know people and ultimately help advise them. I mean, Wyoming is very interesting because we don't have the state income tax. And so we've got a lot of that kind of influx too, in terms of people. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. In terms of people relocating here for all kinds of financial reasons. But to be able to share that expertise and to be able to do it in a way, it's not necessarily something where, I can't tell you how I've monetized it. I don't think that there's a dollar value that you assign to that, but I think it's something where it's absolutely been critical to the overall success of my business. And then also the perspective that I bring to Realm, or that I kind of am able to bring to our colleagues, as people say, well, how are some other ways that I could network within my community? I mean, we were talking about it before, Diane. The community foundation it's foundational in a lot of markets like yours or mine.
So I like how you very efficiently described it. You call it a bank for nonprofits. Okay. And so when we think about the work that we do and where we can give back, we need to be efficient with our time and serve in places where we can both satisfy the idea that we're giving, but also in places where our services, we are the popular, right? A real estate professional is the popular person at that cocktail party. I like to say today, back in the day, because I'm old enough, that in the late 90s and early aughts, it was how many stock options do you have? Today, it's what's your house worth? And
Totally.
so, yeah, so you get to be the popular person there because they're going to ask you, like, tell me what you think of the market. And one of that is the true reason why we here at the Institute created the luxury market report. Because what that does is it makes the real estate professional have something they can give people, right? It's that giving that creates the thought leadership to the community at large. So CPAs, family offices, no, they all want to know what's happening in real estate, don't they?
Oh my gosh. I mean, you're absolutely right. Nobody, I can't think of anybody that doesn't love talking about real estate, right? I mean, and so you get to be kind of the popular kid at the party, but it's so interesting because I think you make such a great point in that, like, being good at what you do and being knowledgeable is kind of table stakes. And so there's a marketing guru named Bruce Turkel who says, people do not work with you because of what you do. They work with you because of who you are. Right. And so when you think about, what the Institute puts out in terms of just information and collateral and just absolutely invaluable information on what's happening in these markets, if you can go in and be dazzling and then you back it up with all of this wonderful information, that's magical, because then it's like, you've got the thought leadership piece down. You can talk to a lot of people. You can be a community builder. You can be a philanthropist. You could be all those things. And then you follow up with really great data, that's beautifully put together. That makes people talk. And again, it goes back to kind of being intentional about building that sphere. I mean, when you're talking about it at a cocktail party, it's not like, hey, I just happen to have a market report right here in my handbag. But it is like the next day, I will send a follow-up and just say, it was so great talking with you. I love connecting. Just in case you were curious, here's some additional information on what's happening right now. And that it isn't anything that they couldn't necessarily get elsewhere. It's just beautifully synthesized, put together, and kind of wrapped with a beautiful bow on it from the Institute. And it's like, that's the kind of magic formula.
Well, it's great you're a fan of Bruce Turkel, because he's going to be our keynote speaker at Leaders in Luxury. And I just fell in love with him, right? And talking to him, because it's really true. Like cannot make it more clear that it's not about what you do, it's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And and these types of things, again, when I get, like the series of questions that we get asked here at the Institute. Well, how do I get referrals? Right. Well, you create loyalty and you do a good job, and right. And all of that. It's not magical.
Right.
But I want to come back to the giving that you do that grows this network, right? When you started out in Jackson and you really didn't know anybody, right? And you weren't suddenly on the board, right? You were just volunteering.
Yeah, no, that's right. It was, so and my husband and I had been married for 3 months and we didn't have anything. And we were starting from scratch. And so it was so much more about at that time making sure that people knew me, and I was providing value in other ways other than kind of being able to financially support the foundation and or financially support any of the nonprofits. And so we would go out and just volunteer and get to know people that way. But all the time still talking about real estate and talking, in the vernacular of real estate. And anytime we traveled, we would go and make sure that we were meeting colleagues in other markets, and just introducing ourselves and hearing about how they talked about real estate. Because I think a lot of times people say, well, I can't, how am I supposed to break into luxury? I don't have any of that connection. And the reality is that those clients are everywhere, and they get they get advice from people of all different walks of life. And I've been amazed because we have had everybody from like the hairstylist at the salon to the to the, I mean, heck, it can be the trainer at the gym, it can be all of these different people that are like, I've seen you in the community and I'm so impressed by kind of who you are or what you're about, or I've heard you speak. And it has very little to do with like, oh gosh, well, I know that your average sale price now is, whatever, $8 million. It's like, no, when we were growing our business, it was always just more about being out there and making sure that people knew that we were in the biz.
When the other thing that you said there that I want you to come back to is, and we teach on this, but it's this constant reminder that the beginning at the mass affluent, all the way up to the ultra high net worth, those folks seek advice all the time, right?
They are students. Yes, they are 100%. They're students of the world, right? And so a lot of times, the other thing that I think is so interesting, and to that point, Diane, is that 90% of the world's affluent are self-made. And so when you think about that in terms of like, oh my gosh, this person has, I'm going through this house and this person has a 10 or a 20 or a $50 million home, they at one point in their lives, more than likely, they were just like everybody else in trying to like, what, I've got a dream, I'm trying to make it happen, I'm working my tail off. And I think that that's also an interesting perspective when you look at kind of how you're building your business and building your network. Because oftentimes, I mean, what we've seen with some of our wealthiest clients now is that they prefer to surround themselves with people that are kind of the mountain hosts, the ski guides, the fishing guides, because they want that sense of normalcy. Your life gets so big, and they're like, boy, I just want to be able to wear flip-flops and go fishing and and have everybody kind of treat me just like they treated me 10 years ago, or when I was a little, kind of when I was getting started. And so I think as you look at all of those things, I mean, it's really how you approach that that ultimately adds to your credibility within the business.
And one of the things that we really spend a lot of time on teaching and reminding is be an expert, right? Really know your stuff. Like I certainly believe, outside of the tech startup, which is how we got to know each other, but I certainly believe that in that community, what's happening. And you as a thought leader are having thoughts about what's going to happen in the future. Because the other thing really in kind of the world we're living in right now, nobody has a crystal ball. Okay. But gosh, how many questions are you getting now about, well, now what do I do? Right. The pandemic's kind of over. We are now in this other weird economic place. What are you reading? What are you doing to help make yourself valuable to those folks?
Well, I think it's, one, it's networking with people like you in the industry that are having thoughts and that are kind of thinking about the same things. It's networking with other peers within the industry. But then it's also, I think, you have to pick your head up and kind of look outwards, which was a huge piece of realm. And as we were building it, Abby Posner, who is the chief creative strategist for Google, right? So she's a dear friend of I'm good at making friends, and it's been now it's been like this incredible people collection where she is, her thoughts and what she's doing on behalf of Google in terms of data and really humanizing data is remarkable. And and she is looking at things all over the world and has this incredible global perspective. And so having conversations with people like her or Paul Wilmington, who's another incredible marketer and thought leader, and people that are they're out there, and their perspective is from 30 or 50,000 feet above where any of us are operating, and just being kind of a student and absorbing all of that, and then going back and saying, okay, now how do I apply this? How do I apply this to my personal business? How do I apply this to Realm? That is invaluable, because I think a lot of times, especially in real estate, because we all get busy and we get kind of focused, we all kind of sit around the room together as real estate people, and we're speaking the same language, we're saying exactly the same things, and then a decade goes by and we go, well, why didn't this business ever change? And it's like, well, there's so much out there and so much to learn, that I think just being a great listener and being a student of everything. I have an example, because to me it is such a great, it epitomizes luxury. But I was on a call. I belong to a professional organization called the Young Presidents Organization, and I'm in a global chapter. And so during the pandemic, we had a happy hour with some of our chapter mates who were in India. So they were having their happy hour, and my husband and I were having our coffee in the morning. And I am so fascinated by kind of this dynamic nature of luxury that I asked the people on the call, how do you think, luxury, the definition of luxury is changing again based on this new perspective that we all share. How would you define luxury? And one of my chapter mates said, for me, luxury now is peace of mind. And I started to think about that in terms of our clients and providing them, as everybody is migrating all over the world and changing. People were moving to Jackson Hole, they were moving to different parts of the country. They'd never been here. How do I afford them the luxury of peace of mind? And like that it was such a mind-blowing kind of insight based on a call where we were just goofing off, having our coffee with some friends that were continents away. But it's shaped a lot of how we've actually started to do our business and market and really look at serving our clients.
So yeah, I think, I used to define luxury as like having choices, right? You get to be a point in the world where you're successful, and today that's now peace of mind is what you're saying, right? Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's changing again. Like, I think it's so interesting, because I think the rate and the rapidity of change is faster than we've ever seen it. And I think that's going to continue. And I think, so I think we're out of the peace of mind economy and we are into the innovation economy, where it's just all about, how much more efficient can we make it? How can we use data to make the process more seamless? I think we are, I think that we're in a period where people are using innovation to build community, to connect with each other in new ways. And so I'm kind of excited about what's next. But again, that's just, those are my thoughts, because I love thinking about those things and then seeing how we can apply it to real estate.
So, what I wrote down when you were talking is, critical thinking. There's books that can help people who just don't naturally do that. Like, I think it's one of them is called The Six Hats. Just getting you to think about things differently is a very myopic industry. And there's so much risk around that really what you're saying too is, in your sphere, make sure your sphere is peppered with, sure, some folks who do what you do, but mostly folks who don't do what you do.
Yeah, I think it's a blend. I think it's, when you look at Realm and what we've built with a group of really elite people operating at the very top of the business, it's interesting because, people will say, well, do you think, is there a lot of infighting? Is there a lot of ego? And it's actually just the opposite, because it is so much more about everyone is elevating each other's game, and so as I look at it, I love connecting with people in the industry that have that spirit of excellence. And we normally will share clients. Because there are so few, you're kind of getting into that, the 1% of the population. So we've all got clients in common. And the clients like us for different reasons, and they'll use us for, in different markets, or fly one of our colleagues somewhere to help them in a negotiation. But it's kind of more about like, okay, if we're all just operating from the point of service and of learning and collaboration, everything else gets kind of sorted out. And I think in the past, real estate has stayed kind of insular, and I think that that's all changing too. I mean, we're actually seeing more and more co-listings happening between different markets, like where somebody's in Toronto and somebody's in Austin, Texas, and they're representing a property in Puerto Vallarta, where you're just like, whoa, okay, well, this is new, but it's that kind of, because they're looking to activate each other's networks. And it's not about like, it's all about capitalizing on this incredible strength. And I don't know if I answered your question, Diane, but that's it's another really interesting kind of nuance that we're seeing.
Well, because one of the things that Realm does, and you and I have talked about this, right? Our businesses are more similar than they are different. Okay. And we at the Institute, we have the Institute network, really, that is this enclosed group of just members that can utilize the technology that we innovated, right? Mm-hmm. That allows agents to connect to each other. You add another layer on top of that, which is your partnership with Wealth Engine, where you take data, because this is really, when you say technology, you mean the platform, marrying the platform with the data, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and then using artificial intelligence and all of that to kind of to be predictive about, if a client likes this, then they might like this. And so there's all of that that's kind of going into, we're taking what you would probably take a month to search on Google, and we're just doing it like instantaneously.
Yes. And this idea of the matching technology, mm-hmm. which I love. And kind of to circle back so that it's easier, right?
Yes.
When you think about the act of buying a car, I don't care if you're buying a Lamborghini or a Toyota. Nobody likes to buy a car because it's really not easy. And these disruptors in that industry are just drilling on, I'm just going to make it easy, right? And that's probably been around, those networks have probably been around at the Lamborghinis and the Aston Martins for a long, long time. And it's coming down into the Toyotas, which is, man, I don't want to go to a dealership and I really don't want to have to sit and haggle. And so, there's Carvana, right? Yeah. And so I like to think about you in that way, serving this elite group of people who want it to be easy and want you to have done all the work, mm-hmm. right? Not them do all the work. So this has been just such a great conversation, and you and I can just go on forever and ever, which is why you're coming to Leaders in Luxury, and I can't wait. Can't wait to see you in person, right?
I know. I'm so excited. I mean, I feel like we're old friends.
Yes.
But like you were just saying though, Diane, too, the car is a perfect example, because you think about like the car clubs, like whether it's a Bentley car club or a Rolls Royce or a Lamborghini, that's really where we're saying, okay, you know what, there are profiles that you can kind of build around people where you're like, oh, there's a very special car that's come out, or there's a very collector's item. And those are the nuances that we're really kind of focusing on and building lifestyle affinities around. And so that then we can, we just brought on Bentley Tower in Miami, right? So they have four car garages. Yeah, they have 4-car garages on every floor. You drive your car into an elevator, and you go up to your beautiful high rise. Yeah, you're just like, well, there's a lifestyle around that, and that's really what we look to activate.
That's really cool. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I think this was super interesting, and I hope our listeners enjoyed it. And you take care of yourself, and we'll see you really soon.
Diane, thank you so much. Thank you for all of the work and the leadership that you bring to the industry. It's just such a pleasure to know you.
See you later, Julie. Take care.